My name is Raymond, but on the streets, nobody cares about names. Only the sound of the cart I pushed, day after day. I grew up in rural Alabama, in a small town that barely appears on the map. My father was a farmer, a tough man, calloused hands, but with a sense of dignity bigger than the world allowed. He always said that hard work was all a man needed to live with respect. For a while, I believed that. I believed that even having little, you just had to try hard and things would work out. But when my father died and the farm was no longer able to support anyone, I had to leave. I thought I would find opportunities in the big city. I chose Detroit, not because I had family or friends there, but because it seemed like a place where nobody would care where you came from. A place for new beginnings, only that also means that nobody cares when you fall. In the beginning, I got some odd jobs in construction, heavy lifting, concrete, dust, but the pay was honest until the crisis hit. When the factories started to close and the jobs disappeared, I went with them. The money ran out quickly. I sold everything I had, even the jacket my father left me. I lived off favors until there was no one left to ask for help. I ended up pushing a supermarket cart, collecting aluminum, cardboard, anything that would earn a few bucks at the recycling centers. I would wake up before the sun rose with an empty stomach, my feet destroyed by the holes in the streets, my hands calloused to the point of bleeding. And nobody looked. In winter, the wind cut like a knife, and the eyes that crossed mine were always the same. Quick, repulsed glances, as if I were a stain, a walking piece of trash. There was no shortage of whispers, sometimes even direct to my face. Another bum. These guys only bring trouble. But worse than the contempt was the hunger, that constant hunger which consumes you from the inside out. I saw people leaving coffee shops with hot cups in their hands, throwing away food better than I had eaten in weeks. It seemed like there was an invisible wall separating those who live and those who only survive. And me, I was trapped on the wrong side. I tried everything. I cleaned windows, carried bags at the market, offered help for any change. Until one day, I found myself rummaging through an alley behind a market and found a pile of stacked cardboard boxes. It was a find. I would sell them for a good few dollars. But when I started putting the boxes in the cart, I heard quick steps behind me. "Hey, what are you doing there?" The owner of the market, fat, red with rage. "Just taking the cardboard, sir. I'm not bothering you." He looked at me as if I had spat on the floor of his store. "You're one of those wastes. Get out of here. I don't want bums dirtying my business." People stopped. Some laughed. Others whispered. He came to my cart and tore the boxes off, throwing everything on the ground. "You're going to die in misery like this." I left there with shame burning inside me. Hunger was one thing, but that hurt more. The feeling that no matter how hard you try, the world has already decided that you are invisible. I no longer saw a way out. It was at this point that I started thinking about the wrong thing. I met a guy on the street, Kenny, always well-dressed, an expensive cell phone in his pocket. He never seemed worried. He said there was an easy way to make money: trafficking. "Just deliver some packages, quick cash," he said. I went with him one night to a house in a decaying neighborhood full of abandoned buildings. The smell of cigarette and mold was unbearable. Inside, people sitting with empty stares, a weight in the air that gave chills. I heard muffled screams coming from the back, sounds of something or someone getting beaten. "Relax," Kenny laughed. "It's only for those who don't pay." When two men came out dragging a bloodied man tied to a chair, I knew. I didn't have the stomach for that. I pretended I needed to go out for a smoke and disappeared. That same night, I thought about prostituting myself. I wasn't ugly. I had a decent appearance. I took a long shower, a luxury I hadn't had in days, put on my only clean clothes and went to a street corner famous for that. I stood there, observing the movement. But when I realized that most of the clients were men, I realized I couldn't. It wasn't judgment. It was something I simply couldn't do. I went back home and cried. I cried like a child. It was that night that something changed. I was sitting on the sidewalk, my hands on my head, completely defeated, when I felt someone approach. It was a woman. She must have been about 40 years old, well-dressed, with a calm but firm look. "Are you okay?" I tried to feign indifference, but she stayed there. "What do you need to change your life?" I said without thinking. "Money." She watched me for a while. Then she took a piece of paper out of her pocket and wrote an address. "Look for Evelyn Blackwood. Tell her Martha sent you. But think carefully before accepting what she offers." And that was it. She disappeared into the dark street, leaving me with that dirty piece of paper and a strange feeling in my chest. I no longer believed in miracles. But that night, for the first time, something seemed about to happen. I returned home that night with the crumpled piece of paper in my pocket. I couldn't sleep. I kept repeating the name and address in my head. Evelyn Blackwood, 211 Whitmore Street. Detroit is a big city, but it's also a place where if you walk the right or wrong streets, you always find something strange. And I knew that address wasn't in any ordinary neighborhood. It's in a remote area where the houses seem to have stopped in time. The next day, before the sun rose, I was already on my way. The cold was punishing, but I didn't even feel it. When I arrived, the house was exactly as I imagined, old, with peeling paint, but strangely impeccable, as if no one dared to touch it. I knocked on the door hesitantly. I heard slow steps on the other side. When the door opened, an elderly woman with white hair and sharp eyes stared at me for a few seconds. "Martha sent me," I said, stumbling over my words. She didn't say anything. She just turned around and left the door open. I went in. The house inside was different. Everything clean, organized too much. No dust, no mess, no sound, like a place out of time. She left me sitting in the living room for a few minutes before she appeared. Evelyn Blackwood, maybe in her early 40s, dressed in black from head to toe, like someone going to a funeral. What really got me was her look. Those eyes seemed to know everything about me before I even said a word. She sat in front of me, crossed her legs with an almost irritating elegance, and went straight to the point. "So, you want money?" I felt my stomach sink. The way she spoke, without beating around the bush, made it seem like she had heard this story 1,000 times. And maybe she had. I nodded. She was silent for a few seconds, as if weighing her words. "I need to explain what that really means," she began, with that low but firm voice. "I'm not a banker. I'm not a loan shark. I'm not a miracle." She paused, her gaze fixed on me. "I am a bridge, a thin line between this world and another." My heart was racing. I didn't know exactly what I expected, but it wasn't that. "You are desperate. You want to change your life quickly, but everything has a price." Then she said the words that still echo in my head. "Are you willing to sell your soul?" It was like the world stopped. My first impulse was to laugh or say that she was kidding, but I couldn't. I was so broken, so tired of living the way I lived, that the idea didn't seem so absurd anymore. What kind of price?" I asked, my voice failing. She leaned slightly forward, her eyes fixed on mine. "You will have everything in this world. Money, comfort, power. But when the bill comes, it will be charged with interest. And believe me, there is no return." I didn't know what to say. She got up and gestured for me to follow her. We went down a narrow staircase to a basement. The air there was colder, heavier, the walls damp, and the only sound was the creaking of the boards and the slight crackling of burning candles. In the center of the basement, a circle of candles was already set up, strange symbols drawn on the floor. "If you want to continue," she said without emotion, "I will need something simple, your blood." My whole body screamed to run, but my legs didn't obey. She took a dagger with a dark wood handle and made a small cut on my palm. The blood dripped slowly, while she murmured words in a language that didn't seem of this world. She drew symbols around the circle with my blood, while I trembled, watching the flames of the candles flicker. "During the ritual," she warned, "you may hear voices, feel presences. Don't leave the circle, don't speak, and above all, don't try to interrupt." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. She began to chant. The words seemed to make the air vibrate. The basement got darker, as if the light was being sucked out of the candles. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Low. Almost a hum. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks, but soon it became clear that it was coming from all sides. Voices whispering my name, calling me. My hands trembled. Cold sweat ran down my back. Then I saw it. In the darkest corner of the basement, something was forming. A tall shadow with red eyes fixed on me. I couldn't see a face, just an outline. And that hat, like those used in the last century, he didn't move, he just watched me. The candles flickered violently. "Don't leave the circle," Evelyn murmured, her voice now distant. I was paralyzed. After a few minutes that seemed like an eternity, she put out one candle after another. The air got lighter, but the feeling didn't go away. "The ritual is done," she said, as if nothing had happened. As we climbed back up, she made a point of saying, "Remember, Raymond, everything has a cost, and it will always be collected." I went back home that night with the cut still burning and a strange mixture of fear and hope in my chest. My head throbbed. I barely knew if it had been real or if my mind was already too broken to understand. In the days that followed, things started to change, at first slowly, until one ordinary morning, rummaging through an alley where I used to sift through trash, I found something that shouldn't have been there. A black suitcase. Heavy, closed with a padlock. I took it home. I spent hours trying to open it. I almost gave up, until a number came to my mind, like a familiar whisper. 666. I turned the dials. The dry click of the padlock opening echoed in the silence of my room. Inside, money, piles and piles of bills, more than I could count. It was at that moment that I realized the pact worked. I got what I wanted, but a part of me knew that the price had not yet been collected. When I opened that suitcase full of money, I thought it was the beginning of my new life. I didn't think twice. I went out spending. First, new clothes. Then I rented a decent apartment, away from the alleys where I used to sleep. I bought furniture, real food, a cell phone, everything I always thought I would never have. Finally, I felt like someone. But it was only the beginning. The money didn't seem to run out. I started investing in real estate. Old cheap buildings I renovated and resold. My bank balance exploded. In less than a year, I had more than I could spend. I bought a big house on the outskirts of the city. Huge garden, swimming pool, full garage. I hired people to clean, cook, take care of whatever I wanted. Everyone treated me differently now. I was the successful guy, the guy that nobody ignored anymore. But then, the little things started. First, the nightmares. Always the same dream, that man from the basement, tall with an old hat, face hidden by the shadows, red eyes staring at me. In the dream, he didn't do anything. He just watched me. But I would wake up with my chest tight, as if something was drowning me. Then came the memory lapses. I would wake up in places that I didn't remember having gone to. Bars, empty streets. Once I found myself in the parking lot of a motel with no idea how I got there. I asked at the front desk. They had my name on the record, but I didn't remember anything. The voices started shortly after. Whispers in the corner of the room, in the bathroom, sometimes in the car. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but they were always there. Low, incessant, always calling my name. I started to think I was going crazy. That's when I decided to adopt a cat, something to keep me company. I chose a white kitten, small blue eyes. I called him Lucky. For some time, Lucky was the only thing that kept my head in place. He slept with me, followed me throughout the house, and curiously, when he was around, the voices disappeared. The nightmares lessened. I thought that maybe, just maybe, things were getting better. Until that night. It was Christmas. I was alone. I sent the employees home early. I wanted some time, just me and Lucky. I prepared an improvised supper, left a turkey in the oven. I drank a little more than I should have. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, Lucky curled up beside me. When I woke up, the smell of burning was already strong. I ran to the kitchen. The turkey, completely charred. I cursed loudly, turned off the oven, but soon I realized something else. Lucky was nowhere to be found. I called for him. I turned the whole house upside down. Garden, bedrooms, garage. Nothing. That's when I remembered that, before going to sleep, I had thrown some clothes in the washing machine. My stomach sank. I ran to the laundry room. I opened the lid. And there he was, Lucky, tangled, lifeless, in the middle of the white clothes. I couldn't control it. I threw up right then. I fell to my knees, feeling everything collapsing. I buried him in the garden. I didn't talk to anyone for days. After that, things got worse. The man in the black hat started appearing even when I was awake, in the reflection of the mirror, in the corner of the room, on the car glass, stopped at a traffic light, always looking at me. The voices didn't stop anymore. I started losing weight, sleep was gone. Everything I had built no longer meant anything. I felt like I was being suffocated by something I couldn't understand. That's when I decided to look for Evelyn Blackwood again. I returned to that house on Whitmore Street. When she opened the door, she seemed to know that I would come back. "I want to undo the pact," I begged. She stared at me for a while, then said, "Few try, even fewer succeed. But I can try." She charged me an absurd amount. I paid without hesitating. The ritual that night was heavier than the first. More candles, more symbols, more blood. She warned me, if it works, prepare to lose everything. And I lost. My businesses began to collapse. First a tenant disappeared, then another. Investments failed, accumulated debts. I sold properties to try to stem the tide. Even my big house was gone. I went back to a small, almost empty apartment. But the nightmares didn't end. On the contrary, the figure of the man in the hat was there now every night, sitting at the foot of my bed. He didn't speak. He just stared at me. I started waking up with cuts all over my body, as if I had been scratched or beaten. One night I woke up on the sidewalk with no memory of anything, face bruised, clothes torn. I found out that I had fought in a bar, but my mind was a blur. I went to the doctor. I did tests trying to understand. That's when I received 2 diagnoses, HIV and cancer. As if that wasn't enough, my body was now betraying me too. I knew deep down that the final price was coming. Now, each day seems like a countdown. I still hear the voices. The man in the hat has never left. He is here now as I write this. He is standing in the corner of the room, dark, motionless, just waiting. I feel that something is about to happen, something that I cannot stop. If anyone knows how to escape a pact like this, anything, I beg you, I don't know how much longer I can take it.